to the fourth session of the Eco-Agriculto Integrated Landscape Management Training Program. It's great to see so many of you here. We are joined today by Gustavo Mentlik. I think you can, let me spotlight him for you so you can all see him. And I will introduce him in just a little bit. Gustavo, could you move on to the next slide, please?
Of course.
Thank you. So just a recap of where we are on the program. This is the second month of the training. It's the fourth session. On Tuesday, we had the session on diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice as a cross-cutting part of ILM. Today, we're going to be looking at stakeholder identification and engagement as a foundation for ILM. And this is going to set us up very well for the next couple of sessions, which are going to be very specifically focused on landscape partnerships and cross-sectoral governance. And the next step of that, which is sharing the vision. So once this landscape partnership has come together, once we've identified all the stakeholders, we're going to be thinking about how we can develop a shared vision for the whole landscape. And you can move on to the next slide, please. And then just to set us up for today, a reminder about how we want to create this nice, welcoming learning space for all of us. Please raise your hand, use the chat function as much as you like, interact, react, like, post hearts, however you'd like to interact with us. We really expect these sessions to be as interactive as possible. There's time for you, for the Ricolto team. So send us suggestions, send us comments about how we can change, adapt, make this a better space for everybody. For the questions, this session, we've added blocks of questions in the first half of the session and in the second half of the session. So while Gustavo is talking, feel free to post your questions in the chat box and put them at the question block. Let me just mute this person. All right, and then thank you, Gustavo. So an introduction to Gustavo. Gustavo, do you want to introduce yourself, Gustavo, or do you want me to introduce you?
Please, feel free. Continue.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to have Gustavo here today. I've known Gustavo for about a year and a half now, I'd say. Gustavo developed the stakeholder identification and engagement materials for 1,000 Landscapes. So we've been collaborating with him for about a year and a half now, I'd say. So I'm very happy that he's here today with us and that he's leading the session. Gustavo is an economist. He's been exploring diverse aspects of sustainable development over the past 10 years, especially related to organic chocolate in southern Bahia and planting agroforestry systems in Brazil. He's also dived into themes such as permaculture, sustainable supply chains, agroforestry, and bioeconomy. And last year, he started working with 1,000 Landscapes on the project that I just told you all about. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce you to Gustavo. I'm just going to go over the objectives and the agenda very quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to him. So the focus, as I mentioned in a previous slide, today our main objectives are we're going to introduce the concept and some tools for practicing stakeholder identification. We're going to introduce the relevance and practices of stakeholder engagement. And we hope that by the end of the session, you'll understand how to identify and engage key stakeholders in your landscape. So the agenda, very quickly, we're going to start with a check-in, a pre-test, which most of you have already completed. Gustavo is going to tell us a little bit about stakeholder identification. So that includes the process for stakeholder identification, the process for mapping and analysis. We're going to have a short break, and then we're going to jump into stakeholder engagement. So I'm going to type in the pre-test just one more time in the chat box for you all. And I'm only going to give you 1 minute to do this because we've already I think a lot of you have already completed it. So just 1 minute to do that, and then I'll hand it over to, oh, sorry, no, it's still with me. We're going to do a session recap. So you have 1 minute to get started on that. All right, 1 minute's up, so feel free to send your answers as we go through the session. And now we're going to move into a session recap. So just to break the ice a little bit, Gustavo, you can go on to the next slide, please. And I am actually going to post these questions in the chat box and ask Gustavo to turn the screen, stop sharing the screen so that we can all see each other.
Stop share, right?
Mm-hmm. And I thought it would be nice if everyone who can turn their cameras on could turn their cameras on. And the idea is just to spend 5 minutes or so doing a session recap of the last session. I added some prompt questions in the chat box, but just to get a sense of how you're feeling about the last session and all the sessions so far, how you think they're going, how you think the topics that we've been covering relate to ILM. And there are a couple of prompts in the chat box for you to think specifically. So for example, thinking about the last session, why is diversity so important to our landscapes or our ILM activities? Why is it important to identify these gaps for ILM? Maybe thinking about this session, how identifying these stakeholder gaps helps us in engaging stakeholders. So does anybody have any thoughts about that? I'll open it up to the team. Feel free to raise your hands if you'd like to share anything. Maybe I'll ask Mariela or Norvin to get us started. How do you feel that the last session connects to this session that we're doing today? Why is identifying these stakeholder gaps important for stakeholder engagement? I think nobody's had their coffee yet this morning, Gustavo.
Yes, we have to wake them up.
Yeah, we need to wake you guys up.
Hey guys, who starts? Okay.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for kicking us off.
Good morning. I see everyone is quiet today, so let's see. I think it's really important because once, like, just recapping from what we did yesterday was to get to know who is part of the landscape, how we have to include all these vulnerable groups. The groups are always are left behind, usually women, indigenous people, the youth, some people with some disabilities probably, and all these other groups that usually are not taken into account, even when the state has some policy or national policy that they should be included. So this is important because we need to take into account all these people who will be represented in the stakeholder platform because they are part of the whole ecosystem. So probably some of them, they might be not well represented in the terms that the people are not empowered to be part of this, those groups, and probably they are not comfortable talking about it, the different issues in the ecosystem, and probably they also don't have the resources to do many of the things that they should be doing to get to the standards of what the multi-stake platform probably will like to get to at some point in achieve. So I guess to identify those groups yesterday allow us to everyone to be counted. So everyone to be counted in this ecosystem and everyone to be represented.
Thanks, Raul. That was wonderful. Thank you. Anybody else? Would anyone else like to share? All right. Well, I appreciate Raul for kicking us off and trying to wake us up a little bit and shake things up. I see a very nice connection and segue from the session we had on Tuesday to the session we had today. On Tuesday, we looked at why it's important to consider all of the different stakeholders and all the different, and especially thinking about how it's important to engage different stakeholder groups in the ILM process. ILM really is about integration. It's about bringing all the different stakeholders together so that you bring different minds, different perspectives, different views. different needs, different demands, and it's hard, it's messy. It's about bringing all of these different perspectives together and coming up with a shared vision for the future of the landscape. So I think it's a really nice segue today to the session that we're having with Gustavo. I'll hand it over to Gustavo for him to kick us off on stakeholder identification.
Okay, guys, I'm just gonna share my screen again. 1 second. So everyone can see it. Is it all good? Session recap.
Yes.
So
Yes, yes.
okay. So first of all, hello everyone. For me, it's good morning. Now it's 9:46 in Brazil in the morning. I am based in Southern Bahia. And I'm very happy to be together with you today. It's great that you are here in the morning. I don't know if it's morning for you. Maybe for some of you, it's already afternoon, right? So as Patricia already presented me, we will go on with our presentation. So I'd like to know what words and phrases come to your mind when you think of inclusive stakeholder identification and engagement. It is very great that you have a lot of experience with the multi-stakeholder platforms, the MSP approach. It is very similar to the integrated landscape management approach that we will be talking in the sessions. But I would like to know from you what you understand from inclusive stakeholder identification and engagement. So Patricia will share the link of Mentimeter, and you're gonna share with us a few words that comes to your mind when you think about this topic. So feel free to share what you think. My idea is that we can build this understanding together, right? So please, let's see what comes up. And I'm gonna share my screen here. So someone said about participation, working together, collaboration. Diversity, that's amazing. Involvement. Complexity, I love that word. We're gonna talk about it as well. Understanding, working together. Anyone else? Key stakeholders. Okay, that's really good. I love this word cloud. Collaboration, participation was repeated, dialogue, listening, working together. No one left behind. This is really, really good when we talk about inclusive by stakeholder engagement, right? Okay, that's amazing. Let me see if there's someone sharing more. I think that's good. So we are back here. And from the very beginning, I would like to hear from you. What is a stakeholder? Does anyone want to share something, what you understand by a stakeholder? Please feel free. It's also very important that you understand that we want you to participate, and this session has to be interactive, right? So please, go on. Anyone? Anyone wants to share? Okay.
Sure.
So someone? Oh, please.
For me, is an stakeholder is an actor, an organization which is in the landscape or in the territory that we want to work, has some participation in the territory, or has interest to be involved or not, but is in the territory, has some interest in the location, is there. So we need to take into account, because maybe its interests affect positive or negative in the intervention, or maybe in the solutions.
Perfect, Mariela. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I would like to share a bit of the definitions that we have here. So basically, we say that stakeholders are relevant players, as you said, who might affect or be affected by the landscape. Exactly the same as Mariela shared with us. I know that you guys are more used to the MSP approach, so I was wondering if maybe you can see a stakeholder as someone who's more involved in the supply chain of certain product. I'm not sure if that's right. But when we talk about the ILM approach, we try to understand and have a perspective over the whole system, not only single parts of it. The basic idea is that landscapes are complex systems. So we must have a perspective of it all in order to recognize patterns and creative effective solutions. Basically, by understanding and approaching problems from a systems perspective to the landscape. This is a bit complex sometimes when you think about it, but it's actually something that we observe in the nature as well. And also the Ricoto MSP guide states that the interrelation of the parts shapes how the system works. And all the parts of a system, are interconnected. So I think this is very important and very key for us. I'd like maybe to hear from you more. If you want to share about some of the stakeholders of the landscape that you work on, feel free, please, to share. This image presents different types of stakeholders in a landscape. So they can be from multiple sectors and organizations. They can be local stakeholders, but they can be also physically distant. But they may have a legitimate interest in the landscape, like, for example, investors, maybe research institutions or international buyers. So stakeholders in the landscape include community groups, business, private sector, civil society, government agencies at multiple levels, and many more. Does anyone wants to share your experience with stakeholder identification? It would be great to hear from you. If it can be in the chat box, if you feel more comfortable as well, that's no problem at all. If you prefer to write, but if you want to speak, it's really great. Okay, so please, if you wants to speak, just feel free. Yeah, just raise your hand. Raul, do you want to speak or can I continue?
Yeah, well, yeah. I haven't worked directly in integrated landscape management, but I have some experience identifying some actors through other type of work. The hardest part is first to know who is relevant to the landscape, in this case, or to the area you are trying to work, to get the trust of them to be part of this platform at the same time, and to convince them that they will have a gain-gain situation. Some of especially the bigger actors in these landscapes, sometimes they feel that there is a waste of time for them unless you have a previous process to identify the small one who is going to represent in the big, large scale. So just to bring them at the end of the process, otherwise they will be discouraged. So it's a trade we're talking about yesterday, a trade-off. This work that is like you have gains and losses regarding different processes. So, and one of the key elements is to bring at least one important stakeholder who can carry out the weight in some ways, and they can bring the other actors along with. So.
Perfect. Perfect.
Gustavo, sorry, I see there's also a comment from Mafi in the chat box. Maybe they'd like to share more. Mafi mentioned that introducing the private sector and base organizations is still a challenge. Would you like to say more about that, Mafi?
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning. Yes, I'm here in Guatemala, and it is still a challenge. Basically, for the base organizations, we have now this challenge, because they, as Raul said, but they also don't have the economic part to be present, right? To walk in their communities and have a bus or something to get in the dialogue space. And also the private sector, it's like a little bit of resistance and for someone to take part of these dialogues and make this common consensus. There is still a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gustavo, I don't know if you can see the hands, but I see that Mariela has her hand raised as well.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. So something that has happened to me and has been difficult to change or to learn is to identify in diversity, no? Usually, I don't know if this happens to other, but usually for me, or I used to identify as an approach to those who I know, no, or those who I have good partnership. But to achieve complete solution, better with everyone in the landscape.
Perfect.
That's a great question. Sorry, Gustavo, if I may. That's a really good question. It's how do we, what are some good tools or some good pathways for us to turn these, find these more hidden stakeholders that can be key, can be really important to your process, but that are sometimes invisible. Maybe that's something we can talk about later in the session.
Perfect, for sure. Amazing contributions, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So stakeholder identification is part of element 1 of the integrated landscape management approach. It's part of landscape partnership. I'm sure you have seen this ILM wheel before, right? In the first sessions about introduction to ILM that you had already. So the ILM approach consists of 5 elements, and now we are talking about the very beginning of the ILM cycle. So it's a very important moment for creating a diverse, inclusive, and effective partnership. The basic thing here is to understand who is part of the landscape and how they connect with each other or not. So basically the process of stakeholder identification and mapping is about identifying people, groups of people, and organizations who are interested, affected, or affect the landscape. One sentence that I really love, it's from the World Resources International, the paper Mapping Social Landscapes, which is people are the heart of the landscapes. And for me, that's really true. And I take this sentence with me all the time. So the process of stakeholder identification normally consists on 3 main steps. The first one is brainstorming, then mapping, and after that, analysis. So brainstorming is a very common technique that can be used to identify and create a list of stakeholders. And basically, we try to answer the question, who are the relevant stakeholders of your landscape? Also, you can have interviews with key players to identify more stakeholders. Also, research can be really valuable at this moment. But in the brainstorming session, a few questions that I want to share with you that can be relevant for that. So who is affected by the landscape activities? Who will be able to influence the outcomes of the partnership? Whose voices or interest on the subject might not be heard? This is also very important. So the second step would be stakeholder mapping. We're gonna see soon a few examples of this too, but basically consists on organizing a list of stakeholders and clustering them into groups. So it's very common to develop a mind map template, which can help you to organize thoughts or information in a visually appealing manner. So you can imagine that there are elements like boxes, circles to represent ideas, and connection lines to show relationships, and sometimes colors or icons for more clarity. It's basically a method to identify all stakeholders who are part of the landscape and also recognize disparities in equity, diversity, and inclusion. As I said before, it's basically understanding who we are and what is the role of each partner in the system. When you map, it's very common that you start to see clusters. Clusters are groups of similar organizations or individuals, of course, that are close together around some objective or an issue, as well as some entities or people that are working with limited or no connections to other parts of the network. And then the last step, which is stakeholder analysis, we're going to talk about it soon. So I would like to share a very, very short quiz like 3 questions for you to tell me if it's truth or lie. So Patricia will share with you this quiz, this link. Please, Patricia, just to see your understanding and also to break out a bit. We have a break of the speaking the presentation and having more like a practice moment for us. Everyone can open. So in regards to the process of stakeholder identification and mapping, I want to know if these statements are correct. So please, let's check. Is it truth or lie? What? Okay, 2 answers now. I want at least 10, huh? If anyone has any problem to open this quiz, let us know, please. Okay, now together, while the last people start to answer, the first step is brainstorming about who are the relevant stakeholders of the landscape. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Ricardo. All stakeholders are part of the public sector. What about this one?
No.
No, perfect. I think everyone got the correct answer in that. And the last one, it is part of the element 1 in the ILM approach, which is landscape partnership. That true? Is it?
Yes. It is.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. It was quite easy, huh? Okay. So this is actually, I got this image from the Ricoto MSP guide, the stakeholder mapping tool. And it's very important to understand that it's impossible to map complex systems as they are dynamic and ever changing. They are changing at every moment. But this is actually a way better resource than only having our own lenses to watch the system, right? So as you build a physical map, it's a new perspective that you haven't seen before, and also an opportunity to investigate the interconnectedness of the landscape, which is basically the relationship between people and organizations. It also provides a systematic approach to identifying interested parties and also identify, as we said, equity, diversity, and inclusion gaps, which is something that you also presented here also in your questions, but I could see that also in the word cloud. We start to see also who is not there and should be, and identify gaps. So this would be another possible result for our stakeholder identification process, which is a table listing the actors, their groups, such as private sector, local community, and many more, and also more details about stakeholder. It could be a description of each or the relevance for the landscape. I would like to know from you if you have any other tool for stakeholder identification and mapping that you want to share here. Please feel free. We also share some additional resources and tools. Patricia will share in the chat box, but there is an amazing paper, which is Public-Private Civic Partnership for Sustainable Landscapes from Agriculture Partners and IDH. A practical guide to integrated landscape management from the 1,000 Landscapes for 1 Billion People project. Mapping Social Landscapes is actually a paper that I really love. I shared a sentence with you before from the World Resources International 2018, and also another two from the MSP2 guide, which is Wageningen University and Research, a university from the Netherlands that actually does an amazing work. We're gonna watch a video that they are part of it soon. So Patricia shared, right? Any questions?
Gustavo, sorry, I'll share in just 1 minute. I'm setting up the breakout rooms, but I'll share the links very, very soon.
Okay. If you want, I can share here as well. Okay, you do it in a second. So I would like to know from you, do you have any questions? Please feel free to ask at any moment, but now we have a time that we prepared for us to, if you have any questions, feel free, all right? Please, Raul.
Yes, I'm sorry, asking again. I have a question. What happened is when we are mapping the area where we have decided that the landscape management we want to work in, we found there are some have been previous attempts or they are already existing platforms within the area. How we deal with that and how we because in the case of like Ricoto, we don't have unlimited resources, so we have to concentrate on one specific area. So what happens if there are already some platforms working there? How do we do that if they don't have the same common goal in some way?
Perfect. That's a good question. So I think this can be quite complex, but basically, if you have similar goals and objectives, it would be really great to make sure that you can cooperate with the platform and maybe get together with them, see if there is open doors, if they are inclusive somehow, if they want more people to join, if it's the objective of Ricoto as well. But otherwise, it's possible to create, I would say, another platform in the same landscape. That's also possible. But the idea is that there will be differences between people, between organizations, between concepts. And as you're going to see the ILM wheel, the 5 elements, you're going to understand that it's very common that you have different perspectives. And that's actually really rich for the partnership, right? So I think that's a good answer by now. And soon, I'm sure that you're going to be able to have your own perspective about this. But thank you very much, Raul. Okay. If anyone else to share a question, please. Otherwise, you go to a short case study, which offers a very useful context for examining concepts of ILM and the practice of stakeholder identification and mapping. Anyone know this landscape? Okay, so it's basically consists of Lake Naivasha watershed. It's widely known for its high biological diversity and a source of livelihood for many people in the landscape. But in the last decades, the environmental impacts and unsustainable natural resources utilization has led, together with a lot of urban development, to unsustainable water abstraction from the lake. So I would like to share with you, here you can see the map and where is it located in the world. And I'm gonna share with you a short video about the Lake Naivasha for us to discuss and have a few reflection questions together, right? Let me know if you can watch the video properly.
It's an ecological jewel. Lake Naivasha, just 2 hours' drive west of Kenya's capital, Nairobi, attracts hordes of visitors. Tourists, too, come in large numbers. The lake is one of Kenya's most visited spots, and a lifeline for hundreds of thousands. People rely on its fresh water for drinking. The lake also feeds some of the largest flower and vegetable farms in East Africa. The lake provides jobs and even much-needed energy. 3 geothermal power plants depend on the water resources in Naivasha's basin, and the lake plays a major role. So how is Kenya managing this vital resource? Satellite images taken between 1970 and 2008 show the green forest in the upper catchment of Naivasha is thinning fast. In fact, it's disappearing as fast as Naivasha's population is exploding. Here.
The ministry that is in charge of forests and ourselves working together must continue to seek for solutions with the understanding that there is a human problem here. both socio-political and even economic, because those people basically went there to look for livelihood.
Chopping down trees means there is nothing to hold the soil, which washes down into the lake. Silting is now a major problem. As it is, residents by the lake are suffering. As evening comes, Naivasha residents gather what water they can to cook, drink and bathe. For this woman, it means taking what water she can from a waste pipe. It could mean her family's own demise. Naivasha is a source of water for the nation's energy and farms. It quenches the thirst of tens of thousands of lake residents, but the quality of the water is unstable. Decades ago, the lake practically disappeared into the Rift Valley for natural reasons. But under current management, this precious resource has a precarious future.
Sorry, I'm muted. So now we have a reflection time. We will have breakout groups to discuss a bit about this landscape. And the main questions that I want you to discuss in the groups is who is affected by the landscape activities, who will be able to influence the outcomes of the LP, and whose voices or interest on the subject might not be heard. Then we will have like a short time to come back to plenary, to our group, to share the results. Patricia will send in the chat box also more resources in case anyone wants to go deeper into the case study. The landscape profile in the first link, it's very easy. It's one page, which can bring relevant information if you want, but you will be separated into groups of 4.
Gustavo, how long do they have in the breakout groups? It's
Yeah,
9 o'clock now.
Yeah, we're gonna have 12 minutes. Oh, we can go to 15 if you need. It's okay.
I think we should go until 9:30 and then maybe do the break and report back in plenary after the break. Would that work?
Yeah, that works.
All
Sure.
right. So you have
9:30 for you, huh? For me, it's 10:13 already.
All right. So I'm gonna open does everybody understand what you're discussing, what you're looking at? All right, so I'm going to open the breakout rooms by language groups. If you're unhappy with the group you're in, or if you don't speak the language, if you're in the wrong group, just leave the room, come back, and we'll reassign you. And yeah, have fun.
So I hope you have some time to stretch up a little bit, to go to the bathroom, to have some water. Also, if you want to breathe a little bit, to stretch, to feel comfortable where you are, to be present as well. We're going to have 1 more hour session here. And it's very important that you feel comfortable and have a positive time together. So feel free to feel comfortable where you are, right? Okay, so now we're gonna have a time for share what was discussed in the breakout groups. If you want, I can share the questions again. And I would like one represent from each group to share with us a little bit. Anyone can start, please? Vanessa?
Yes. So, hi everyone. My group, so we are Ricardo, Norvin, and Carolina, and me from LATAM. And so about the questions, the first one, who is affected by what happens in the landscape? So first of all, we mentioned the inhabitants that live in there near to the lake. And then also we are considering the flora and the fauna of the landscape. Also about the influence, who has the influence? Firstly, we consider the government, because the government has the power to manage the natural resources. And also government can take measures to regulate tourism. Also government has the capacity to act through public policies and to implement that policies. As second place, we consider the population itself, considering the level of self-organizing and with the support of the civil society. Also about the voices of those who are not here. We call them as invisibles, and we consider that invisible actors in this case could be children and women who at the same time are the most vulnerable population group. And also we want to add that maybe in some cases, due to the cultural background, some beliefs or costumes may limit the access for women to the spaces of taking decision. And that's it.
Amazing. Thanks.
Yep. Can I present for yes, in our group we were 3 members. Hello, you able to hear me? Yes, we were 3 members, Shukuru, Haruna, and myself, Moses. So we didn't have very differing answers from what she has discussed, but we felt that in this ecosystem, everybody will be affected. But the person who will most be affected will be the local community. The local community will be most affected. And it's important that when we are talking to these communities, we show that actually the effects are more to the local community than anyone else. And in that way, the interventions to restore or to improve will easily, catch up. Then on who influences, mainly the government. Like in that case, you saw the minister and maybe the local government has more influence to change the situation, sometimes by coercing or through negotiation. But also the community is very important, because if they realize that this is their livelihoods, then they will be able to influence what changes take place. On the issue of whose voices and interests may not be catered for, it is the children. We saw the children there, the women there who are fetching water. Those are normally they don't participate in meetings, even if it's multi-stakeholder meetings. They usually don't participate. And then the very poor of the poor. Those ones still, if they have issues, this is their livelihood, but they may not be heard. Yeah, thank you. So
thank you very much.
Usually, if there is any other interveners, they should be considering those communities for their views also. Thank you.
Thank you. So someone else, please. We have a few more minutes.
I will try to summarize what we spoke about, but I guess for us it was not just we just not focused on the video, but we were thinking about in general. Sorry. In general, and it was like who's affected by. In this case, it's just not the people around the lake, but also the people who are not intended to. There are a lot of people around and they cannot use the resources, especially the more vulnerable. And when we discuss who is part of how we can incorporate people who in that platform. We were thinking about like when do we bring people to not to get to that point where some people are left behind and don't have access to the resources, especially in this case where we're watching the video about the access to water and the quality of the water is not just the amount that they get, but the quality that probably is not is being contaminated and has a lot of hazard materials that are not good for the people who drink that water or use it for different purposes. And we were thinking that the process has to start with a common goals in the beginning, and we have to incorporate people, even the people who doesn't have enough power to deal with the different issues, but at least they have the interest, and that will be a force to break with, and the other people will keep getting bring it on to the table. So the people who usually are more affected are the people also who they believe they don't need to be part of this stakeholder platform. And sometimes they believe that they have enough resources and power to do it. And once they see that the platform is starting going and getting some strength, what happens is they start blocking that same platform instead of joining it. So we were thinking more in general terms, not just the video, but it kept us thinking about how we can have this common goal, especially with the small groups and minorities in the landscape, which are the really ones who are mostly affected by the decision, and usually they don't have the voice to make themselves heard in those communities. So that was in general a discussion about the video, and in general about that, how to make people be part of and make them feel part of this stakeholder platform, and how affect the less people we could do with the decision that the platform is taking.
Thank you very much, Raul. Thank you very much. Is there any other group that wants to share with us? Patricia, if you know some group that is still didn't share, if you want to point out or to ask, please.
We had, did both of the Spanish speaking groups present? We had a group from Indonesia, but it was just one person. Penny, would you be interested in sharing? Or the French group, did the French group Anne and Bernadette share? You're welcome to do so now if you'd like.
We'll share with our experience in Indonesia. We have, in the first question related with affected, we have two types of the affected. The first one in the process of the brainstorming, that's more NGO or GSO is a part of affected, but in the landscape, really landscape is indigenous people or community level is a part of affected on the landscape approach. That's the first one. And the second one is who, wait. Because I'm alone in my group. Who will be able the influencing in outcome? Yeah, this is the depend on the, in our case, depend on the landscape area. In protected forest area, this is the central government responsible. So that one of influencing more in this case. But if we work in around the protected area, it's look like buffer zone. That's part of the local government responsibility. So still government part of the able to influencing in the process. And that one, whose voice interest on the subject may not be here, I think is in our case is local farmer group when they have power to announce anything, to speak anything. So this is like the indigenous people, something like that. So this is based on our experience in Indonesia. We have worked in around protected area with cocoa and coffee project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny.
Gustavo, I think for time, maybe we could unless Anne and
I think so. I'm gonna share my screen again, guys. It was really great to hear the discussion. I think it was really great. It's a success for us to share a bit of ideas and understand different contexts. Also, working with a case study presents us new, not only new tools, but a different context for us to analyze. That's very interesting. So now we're gonna jump to stakeholder analysis, which is the third process that we said. So we would start with stakeholder identification, then mapping, which would be brainstorming, mapping, and now analysis. So basically, stakeholder analysis is about understanding the characteristics of each stakeholder and how is their connection within the landscape and with other actors as well. So with landscape analysis, you can develop a strategy for engagement and also prioritize certain stakeholders to get involved in the partnership. I would like to share a quick video with you. I'll cut a little bit. It's from the Landscape Academy, which is a collaboration between the Global Landscapes Forum, Wageningen University, and the UN Environment. It talks a bit about stakeholder analysis. So let's do it.
Are you struggling with who to involve in your landscape plan? After watching this video, you will know exactly who the relevant stakeholders are in and outside your landscape. By using a practical tool, I will show you how to carry out a stakeholder analysis at landscape level. A stakeholder analysis is a methodology for understanding the stakeholder dynamics by identifying the key actors related to the landscape. There are different tools which you can use to assess their roles, interests, and level of influence. As you can see in this photo, stakeholder analysis is usually carried out in a participatory way, which means with a group of stakeholders themselves. So it is a perfect way to engage with stakeholders in an early phase. It is important to realize that it's not just the outcome of the tool that matters, but the process and the dialogue around this tool are just as important. Now, why do we carry out a stakeholder analysis? There are a couple of reasons. Information. The tool that I want to introduce in this video is called the Interest Influence Matrix. And it works as follows. You see two axes. The level of interest and the other one indicating the level of influence. You put the main issue in the middle, which you identify during the landscape analysis. This could be a land degradation, could be drought, or something broader like decision making on climate change. The next step is to write down all the stakeholders who have a stake on this issue. Write each stakeholder on a separate card. And try to be specific. Don't write down government, but be more precise, such as the Ministry of Agriculture or the district government, because their stake might be different. Then, based on group discussions, you're going to place each stakeholder in the matrix, according to their level of interest in the issue, over here, and the level of influence, over here. How much power do they have on the issue? In reality, it could look like this. The issue in the middle and all the stakeholder post-it cards. Okay, now let's reflect a little. The stakeholders in the upper left corner are the ones with high interest and low influence, and they're often referred to as the victims. In the upper right corner, you have those with a high interest and high influence, who are often the ones that can make a difference. In the lower right corner, you have the low interest but high influence. These are sometimes seen as the irresponsible. And lastly, we have the low interest and low influence, who are the bystanders. Now, who would you engage when designing interventions for your landscape? I would say the ones with high interest for sure. These stakeholders have a lot to win and a lot to lose. The ones with high influence are also relevant because they can either make or break your plans. The bystanders, however, should not be dismissed. They might be engaged on certain specific strategic moments, but they're clearly not the most important stakeholders. Okay, to summarize, the reason why we carry out the stakeholder analysis is to avoid this. This is not a fair game, right? But this often happens in reality. We need to level this playing field so that everyone's voices are being heard and their needs are taken into account. Engaging different people in a multi-stakeholder dialogue in an early phase is a way to do this. And a stakeholder analysis is an effective tool to realize this.
Gustavo, you're on you're on mute.
Sorry, because of the video I was muted. Now I'm back. So this is basically the matrix adapted from Wageningen University Center for Development Innovation that was also presented in the video. So stakeholder analysis, as she said, is basically a very important step to understand who are the stakeholders of the landscape in more detail. The basic idea is to capture certain characteristics of the stakeholders and develop specific approach and strategy for engaging with them. The matrix tries to capture the degree of influence and the level of importance or interest of each stakeholder. So now I'm gonna pass to another example of a matrix, which is actually, I got from it's a tool from the Ricoto MSP guide. So instead of importance here, they use influence instead of importance, but it's basically the same idea. And the purpose of the tool is to understand the level of influence and interest of the key stakeholders and also strategies for higher engagement. So it's really interesting that a lot of different references use this tool. And of course, it's to make clear that the matrix is very conventional somehow, and the process of stakeholder analysis is far more complex and dynamic, as you know, but it's a very good reference for us. So, for example, as she said in the video, stakeholders with a high interest and a high influence must be actively managed, as they have a major influence on the project. And each one of the quadrants would give an information for us in order to keep engaging with the stakeholders. So I would like to know from you if you have any questions. That can be a good point by now. We can stop. Please feel free to raise your hands or to speak in the microphone. Anyone? Okay, I guess you understood the video very well. Please, please.
I see Moses on.
Yes. Yes, I was wondering about the bystanders. Don't you think these people could be bystanders because they don't know? For example, in a community like the one we watched in Naivasha, maybe they are interest is high, but they don't know. They have never been informed. So at the time when you're entering this community, you might think they are bystanders when actually they are interested, but they don't know. Yeah, just thinking.
Yeah, that's perfect, Moses. It's a very good contribution. I actually personally agree a lot with that. And I believe that the matrix, as I said, it's a bit too conventional, but also provides good learning for us. But I agree with you that people that maybe don't know, they will not have interest and they would have a low level of influence as well. But as they say in the matrix here, they should be informed. They must be monitored to ensure that they are not able to stop or change the project. So somehow they have to be engaged as well. And I think you are 100% correct. We have to take care here also when we talk about inclusivity. So as you said, like traditional peoples or local communities, they may have a low interest, but for sure they have to be part of this process of engaging, of being part of the partnership. And that's a very important point that will come back soon. That's very good. Anyone else wants to share any question?
Gustavo Percy has his hand up as well.
Yes, thank you. Can you share the last? Yeah. And I like to think how we could intervene, how we could make interventions in this with these groups, different groups. Normally, we start to work with the quadrant A and B. For example, people with normally you could identify in the quadrant A the main problem or the problem. You could start to work here. Then you could involve easily the people that or actors that are in the quadrant B. But it in my mind, I'm thinking pathway. Taking in consideration that you need to draw a route to in times to intervene with these different groups, because not all groups should be involved from the beginning. For example, from the beginning you could start to involve the people in the quadrant A and B, but maybe in the middle of the process you could involve the other actors, but because it is necessary to involve all of them, but not from the beginning. That I think that makes me think this identification and characterization of the different actors, that I need to decide how to involve them in a period of time. Yeah.
That's perfect. I think also this matrix helps us to understand strategies for each stakeholder. So how can we make him part? How can we make this organization or these people part of the project? And then, as you said, like there is a time for us to make this. Is it now? Is it in a couple months, years? When? In which part of the project? That's very important. The idea is that the matrix provides us with a tool and also a good context for understanding better the stakeholders. But I'm sure that we have as I said, the stakeholder analysis is a far more dynamic and complex issue, right? Rather than the table the matrix can explain. So I will jump into stakeholder engagement. So we talked about stakeholder identification, mapping, and analysis, and now we will go into stakeholder engagement. And then I would like to hear from you. What words or phrases come to your mind when you think of engagement? Patricia will share the Mentimeter link. And I'm also sharing my screen here for us to do a word cloud exercise. The idea is that we can create this understanding, we can build this understanding together. So please join. Let's see what comes here. being involved, collaboration, working together, coherence. That's great. Let's see what else. Be part of it. Equipo, I like it. Team, colaboración, collaboration, working together. Empatia. I can see empatia, it's also in Portuguese, so I understand it. Which is being empathic, right? In English, empathic?
Yes, that's right.
Compromiso, commitment. I love the Spanish words here because I understand them, so it's great as well. In Portuguese, compromiso, compromiso, commitment, collaborative work, intention, coherence, how to fall in love. That's amazing, huh? How to fall in love. Actually, this makes me think a little bit about engaging is also about making people feel connected, right, to the issue that is the main objective of the partnership. So how to get in love, it's very deep, huh? And it's very beautiful as well. Thank you. Coming back to the presentation. It's important to have connection to the land as well. That's something that it becomes very clear when you work at the roots level, like at the field, right? That people, like local communities, have a sense of ownership of the projects, of the partnership, really different than some stakeholders that may be far away. So this idea of falling in love with the partnership or with the project or even with the landscape is really, really interesting. I like it. So let me come back here 1 second. Okay. So stakeholder engagement is the process of including stakeholders in an action of decision-making process. This is a reference that we have from the USAID in 2018. There are a lot of references, a bunch of different organizations and development agencies, NGOs, and so many projects that talk about stakeholder engagement. Also, I would like to share another definition by UNDP. They say that stakeholder engagement is a process to ensure participatory equity, accountability, and transparency. And according to them, engagement should be timely, open, transparent, informed, inclusive, and interactive. So I think the main idea behind stakeholder engagement is to ensure that stakeholders are represented in the decision-making process, and also that provides a range of viewpoints and perspectives as valuable knowledge about the local social and ecological systems arise, right? As different stakeholders come together to be engaged. I would like to highlight as well some specific reference about the MSP, the Ricoto MSP guide, which I really like and like to share with you. So according to the guide, Sarah White, I think is the author that they reference there. There are 4 forms of participation, but it's only with transformative participation that we can empower all actors involved. So grassroots actors and actors at the top change the structure of power and decision-making, making them more representative and equitable. I found that really interesting. And also another reference that I got from the Ricoto MSP guide is that normally we tend to imagine that people with a lot of power use power over, when we say, like they say in the guidebook, but you can use your own power to empower others. So you can open the door to more democratic relationships between different stakeholders. So what I understand about this sentence is that basically it's very common to have power disparities inside the partnership, but this is normal, and that it's a reality because we have actors with more power and with less power that will be together in the partnership. But it's possible to use the power in order to empower others to be engaged and be an active voice for decision-making inside the partnership. So that's really amazing as well. And it's inside the guide, the Recall to MSP guide. And now I come with a question to you guys. So why do you think is engagement important? Any idea, any suggestion? How, Percy, please.
Sorry, Gustavo, Raul has his hand up, and I think Percy has his hand up, but I'm not sure if that was a legacy hand from the previous question. So maybe we start with Raul.
Yeah, what that was the last one, but I can participate now.
Okay.
The engagement for me, it is important because if people is not connected, it doesn't work. It don't go. It is important people that is in charge of different activities and different knocking the door in different sectors and different levels and different with different actors, inviting people to involve and feeding the information to be updated with this process, because the process could change in any point. For example, in this engagement of different actors is important for that, because if people don't engage, it simplified doesn't work. That is what I think.
And Raul has his hand up as well.
Yes, and sorry. I just one point about the previous comment about use the power to empower others. I think that is really important. I was thinking about like when you are part of a, I'm not sure in other countries you have this association called cooperativas, where everyone, even though you have more or less money saving, or in the case of the agricultural cooperatives, more or less land, everyone has the same vote, only one vote per person. It doesn't matter how big you are. So I guess in the stake platform should be kind of the same, even though we know that there are some people who have more bargain power to do many things. Regarding engagement, I think it's really important that we will not go further down any path if people are not engaged and they have feel of compromise and they feel like they are part of. And at some point they will achieve things that they will be beneficial for them and as a result, the end of the community. Because as human beings, I believe, and if I represent a group or a consortium or organization, I always will feel like my main point of being part of a stakeholder platform will be to make my voice heard and to achieve some of the goals that I like to be achieved as organization. It's just like probably will be easier to do it as a group than do it alone.
Amazing contribution. Thank you very much.
And Gustavo, we also have Moses has his hand up, if we have time for the last comment.
Please,
yes, just to add on, I think the most obvious answer is for success. You know, if you don't engage everybody, then you won't succeed. You want to avoid resistance. You want to make sure that either adoption or participation is quick. You have to involve, or you have to engage, you know, all the stakeholders, even those who you think may not be important. So you want to avoid resistance and ensure participation. Yeah, on top of other things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Moses. Great. I'm gonna write down what you said just now. That's good, really nice. Engaging for success. I like it. Also, Mariella in the chat, commitments are as part of a larger collective. It's made clear what is the part of the contributions to that larger vision. The sum of the parts is more than that. That's really good. Anyone else wants to share? I would just like to highlight that also engagement, to complement what you already have just said, it's important to create new networks, to form new partnerships, also to, as someone said, I think it was Raul, to encourage a sense of ownership of the product. of the project. That's very important. Also to make the decision-making process transparent and to create new or even to improve communication channels within the partnership. So I would like to share with you very briefly a case of success in terms of engagement. That is the case study Produce, Conserve, and Include, the PCI in Mato Grosso, Brazil. It's a very interesting example to understand more about stakeholder engagement. It will be very short, but the idea is to understand why this partnership or this MSP was so successful in terms of engaging different actors and making effective impact in the region. The region is considered way larger than we normally consider a landscape, but its multi-stakeholder approach and effectiveness for engagement and action will be used here as an example for us in our ILM training program. So here is the landscape boundaries and its map. Mato Grosso lies in the intersection of the Amazon rainforest, the Cerrado, which is another biome that maybe it can be called like a tropical savanna, and the Pantanal wetlands, and is known as the deforestation hotspot in Brazil. It is a coalition that was primarily built by the public sector that includes its own institute and have the support of private companies, NGOs, and other civic sector entities. The partnership creates a structure of high relevance and a lot of impact on public policies, and also a substantial capacity of raising funds and having effective management inside the region. So Mato Grosso state in Brazil, the context of the region is that it suffers a lot from crop and pasture expansion. So vast amounts of forests have made way to agricultural lands and mostly are used for the production of soy and beef. So for you to have an idea, from 1988 to 2018, in 30 years, according to the Brazil National Institute for Space Research, it's estimated that 14.5 million hectares of natural forest in the Amazon biome in Mato Grosso have been cleared out. So that's really huge. And we can see that the PCI, again, the Produce, Conserve, and Include strategy, this case study was really effective. And I would like to understand how they could engage. Why was it so effective? Like, they engage a lot of actors and they have a good impact inside the region. And I'd like to highlight a few reasons that I believe why this project was so successful. So basically, the first one of them is that they brought different actors to the table, very different sectors, and they have dialogue among various stakeholders. Also, the involvement of actors with substantial financial influence was very important since the beginning. The political will demonstrated by the state government was fundamental for sure. And also engagement in collective and participatory construction was also really a key point in this case study. There is only one concern that I would like to share with you that I have with this project is that in Mato Grosso, there are a lot of indigenous communities, a lot. And I would like to share that I believe that they were invited to participate in the partnership, but I'm sure that they were not empowered to take part in the decision-making process of the initiative. And when we talk about engagement, one aspect of it has to be really clear, and you have already highlighted that before, but it has to be inclusive. That's the main thing. So equitable and inclusive stakeholder engagement is essential in the process of building a partnership and having cooperation. To include a diverse range of participants that also represent underrepresented identities within a community. It could be traditional communities, minorities. For example, you said about child, about old people, about women, also in the case study, and it comes back here. It's very important to be inclusive. Also, it can be co-designed with indigenous peoples and local communities as much as possible. And also it's necessary to remove barriers to engagement. And now I'd like to hear from you. What do you think that could be barriers for engagement? Any idea? Any idea?
Different priorities.
Different priorities. Good. Thanks, Mariela. Anyone else? Different priorities. Good.
Database. That's important things because we are lack on the data or information on that.
Perfect. I would also like to highlight an example. Imagine that you were setting up a meeting, in-person meetings. So it's very important to make sure that, for example, everyone has a transportation to participate in the meeting. Or imagine the meeting is remote. So it's very important to check if all the actors have access to internet, to the smartphone, for example. Or imagine language. When working with groups that speak different languages, it's very important to ensure that project documents, communication channels are translated for everyone, especially for local communities and traditional peoples, right? So just sharing a few examples about it. And now I would like to share with you that we'll have a reflection time for us to think about engagement in a more practical way. So I think we can do like a plenary session. What do you think, Patricia?
We have 12 minutes left. So I think we have to do a very quick, maybe just 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, so when being consulted or engaged with a new project, what format or process do I most engage with? For example, interviews, grabbing a coffee, presentation, a survey, a casual walk, storytelling, being on the land as well. And also the second question, if someone invited you to get involved in a new project or an idea, what would make you say yes? So that's 2 questions for us to reflect together. We don't have a lot of time, but it's a good moment for us to listen to each other. Anyone? The questions are in the chat box. I may stop to share for a second for us to see each other here. So maybe can I ask someone to participate? How do you feel like? Norvin, would you like to say something with us? I'm not sure if you are available now.
I can get us started, Gustavo, if you want. One thing that I struggle with is when people want to introduce what they're doing with long presentations. I feel that I don't get enough. I find it difficult to connect on that level, and I prefer more face-to-face, in-person engagement, like going for a walk and talking.
That's very good. I will also share one. You remind me of also a process for engaging with me that's really effective, which is being on the land. For example, I work with the cocoa organic supply chain here in Bahia. And when I go to the land with the people who are the local stakeholders who are really working on the field, it makes me feel really connected and empowered. So Mariela, please.
Okay. Thank you, Gustavo. So something for me as a person, and I feel the same as as Recolta as an organization, something that makes me participate is when I feel, that someone, that others wants to know about me, or want to know what I want, what are my interests. So I think for the first meetings, I also prefer in-presence sessions, because make me, give me the opportunity to know, well, between quotation, entre comillas, to touch. But I think that is important to start a partnership or to start a collaborative work.
Amazing. I love that. Also, Andres said here that it is important to have clear goals and indicators. That's true as well, for sure. Moses, when there is obvious economic benefit from the project to the community. You want to speak also, Moses? Please feel free.
Yes. For why I said there should be economic benefit, it's easy to convince or to talk to the community and explain how this is going to be beneficial to them if they participate. But if it is far-fetched, for example, if you only talk about the environment, the community may not be very responsive. So you need to be talking, like for example, for us here, where we are promoting the SRP production method, we are looking at, there are many other environmental benefits, but we are mainly fronting a case of profitability of rice production. Yeah, and it's easy to then look at the other issues also, but when you have mainstreamed profitability, which benefits the communities directly. Yeah.
Great, Moses. Thanks. Thank you very much. Should anyone else wants to share?
Yes, I think that it is important to work with key actors, key leaders, and that may you feel part of the project, or maybe they could find the correct words to fall in love with the idea. I think that that is, in my experience, people with you work with and with you communicate the ideas, it is important. If you don't manage that, I think that that is a skill that you developed in this process. You need to identify those key leaders, because not all leaders are key actors in your process. Yeah.
Perfect. So I found who was to fall in love, huh? With the landscape. Thank you very much. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share my screen again so we come back to the presentation. We have only 6 minutes left. Okay, just a second. So I think that's a good moment for us to start finishing and having a checkout here. So if you have any questions, you can say here, also send by email for me and Patricia. And I would like to have a really fast checkout with you guys. So to understand, how do you feel by the end of our session? I know it was a bit long, it's intense. We talk a lot about many different content, but it was really amazing to be here together with you. And I'm gonna ask Patricia to, I think there is not the link here. I'm gonna send you the link for our checkout. Okay, let me see if you have here. Is it here, Patricia? Do we have the link for the checkout? No.
I don't have, I thought we were just going to go around and say the word that came to our mind. I don't know, it was a Mentimeter.
No, but that's good. We can do it for sure. We can just come, each one can come with one word to share with us. How do you feel at the end of our session?
Should we put it in the chat box or unmute ourselves? What do you prefer, Gustavo?
I think we can speak just one word. How do you feel? I mean, if that works for you guys. I can start. I feel very thankful for your time and your presence here for this session. It was really good to hear from you. I love your participation. So thank you very much.
And I see people are posting in the chat box. Marielle is enthusiastic and curious. Penny, inspiring. Bernadette, good. Mafi.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I would say the session has been very interactive, and yeah, it facilitates the learning, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. I really enjoy when the sessions are more interactive and there is less content heavy and more just us sharing our learnings, sharing our experiences, sharing our thoughts. Norvin said challenged. motivated, knowledgeable, inspiring, enthusiastic. All very positive words. Gustavo, should we, yes, move on to the next slide, to the homework. All right. Well, thank you, Gustavo, for that wonderful, leading us on that wonderful session. I also leave the session feeling very inspired, and I really enjoyed the level of interaction that we had at the session. So I'm thankful to everyone who participated. But now we need to think more about how we're going to put all of these learnings into practice. And what we're suggesting for the next session is that you look at, I'll follow up by email and I'll share the link again to all of the tools that Gustavo shared. But the idea is for you to choose one or a couple of the tools that were shared by Gustavo today to try to identify and map the key stakeholders in your landscape. You know, we talked about what are the ways to even know who they are, how to start mapping. Maybe that's through interviews, maybe that's through calling people on the phone and talking to them. But the idea is really for you to create a map and start to analyze the results. Try to identify, is there anyone missing? Who are the key stakeholders that are maybe missing from this map? And the stakeholder analysis will help you do that. And then finally, if you have time, think about how you can start developing an engagement strategy in your landscape. How can you effectively bring people closer to your activities? What could be some entry points for collaboration? And I think that final reflection was going to shed some light on that as well. So I'll follow up by email with these prompts. The idea is that you do this in your own time. I hope the Ricolto team, Marielle and Norvin, they can provide additional guidance with that if needed. And are there any questions about the homework?
Amiri, mambo.
Hi, Lillian. Do you have any questions about the homework? No. All right. Okay.
Maybe.
Sorry, go ahead.
When do you want this handed in? Or?
Oh, no. This is just for the next session. There's no work. You don't have to hand anything to us. We're not going to mark anything. This is really for internal reflection for you to work with your lab. So, you know, work with your team members. No harsh deadlines here. And then the next slide, Gustavo, please, just for us to talk about the next session. So the next session that we have is going to be building on all of the work that we did today and the homework that you're going to be doing, building on, now that we know who the landscape partner, the key stakeholders are, what's the best way to collaboratively govern these landscapes. So we're going to look at cross-sectoral, multi-stakeholder governance and landscape partnerships. We're also going to look at shared vision and start thinking about how we can, now that we've brought all of these people together, how can we develop a shared vision for the present and the future of our landscape? However, we don't have dates for the next session yet. We were going to do them on the 19th and 21st of March, but the EcoAct team has a conflict with those dates. So we're working with Norvin, Mariela, Charlotte, and James to see when we can reschedule those sessions for. So we'll follow up soon with the new dates for that. And that's it. Thank you so much for your enthusiastic participation and interaction today. Please feel free to email